One. All right. Hey, welcome back to the Go4CEO channel. This is John the Bomb. Building others means business. And boy, this is going to be an episode of epic proportion because, hey, everything has changed the last 10, 15 years, right? E-commerce has just been booming. And you take companies like Amazon and all these places, well, they're not doing it alone. They're doing it with people like Matthew Stafford, who really revolutionized a way of maximizing those things. So let me share with you a little quick bio. So Matthew Stafford is a seasoned entrepreneur with 30 years of experience in building and scaling businesses. He is the CEO of Build, Grow, Scale, a company specializing in e-commerce optimization, particularly for Shopify stores. Matthew is renowned for developing a revenue optimization system which focuses on enhancing conversion rates and maximizing revenue with existing website traffic. So Matthew Stafford, thank you so much for being on the Go4CEO channel. Let's get right into it. What's going on? How did you start this thing? What's going on? You're a concrete guy. What are you doing in e-commerce?
Yeah, so I had built the concrete business up to the point where we were doing commercial structures. And so I was on the road about 200 days a year. And in that 200 days of being away from home, I realized there had to be a better way. And so I went to a Tony Robbins event. And at the Tony Robbins event, he was selling a program called Money Masters. And what it was is a monthly DVD and a booklet of someone who was selling online and really like crushing it at a high level. And so when I started going through that, I'm like, wow, I've never used my computer to sell stuff. I've used it to send blueprints and proposals and do business that way, but no e-commerce or no online selling. And so I started dabbling in it. And I probably failed at three or four different things that I tried in while I was traveling around the road and playing around. And then all of a sudden, a site came out called Teespring, where you could put a design on a t-shirt and then you would run Facebook ads to it and sell a certain number. And the more you sold, the more money per shirt you would make. And so I got good at coming up with like hot market sayings or funny sayings um and then I started playing around with looking at the Facebook IDs, which you can't do anymore, but this is 12 years, 14 years ago. And I targeted people by their last name. And so I started coming up with funny shirts. And the first one I came up with is I targeted everybody with the name Schmidt, and the shirt said Schmidt happens. And so all of those people thought it was super funny and bought it. And so when I launched that shirt within 24 hours, I'd made like $10,000. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is
Wow.
for real. And then within 2 weeks, I ended up making about 100 grand on that shirt. And I thought, okay, this can replace my concrete business if I get good at it. And over the next 3 years, I ended up selling my concrete business and the two brick and mortar salons that I had and sold about $15 million for the t-shirts. And
Wow.
thought, all right, I'm full time online. And that was a big marketplace, and they made some poor decisions. The company that, you're basically selling off of their platform, they made some bad decisions, and it kind of started getting harder and worse. And so then I switched over to Shopify and started selling kitchen products. And when I was doing that, right, I was pretty good at ads. So the first, the first 3, 4 months, we got it up to 300 sales a day. And I thought, wow, I mean, this is going to be another gold mine. And I started adding apps and upsells and all these other things. Had no idea what I was doing as far as on a website. And my sales got worse and worse and worse. And now we have a couple $100,000 worth of kitchen slicers and avocado tools in our warehouse, and I'm not making any money. And I'm like, uh-oh, I got to figure something out. And so I hired a guy to give me 6 one-on-one classes with Google Analytics, so we could look at what people were doing in the data and then translate that into how would we make it work better on the site. And within those 6 calls, we went back to making 300 sales a day and profitability, and started selling the stuff that we had. And I was like, okay, this stuff actually works. I want to make sure I didn't just get struck by lightning and it worked this time and it's not replicatable. And so I reached out to a couple friends who I sold t-shirts with. We had a little group of 5 or 6 of us that kind of we would share what was working, and it helped us all elevate really fast. Well, by this time they had Shopify sites too. And I said, hey, let me see if I can help you convert higher, make more sales. And if it works, you can pay me. If it doesn't work, you don't have to give me anything. And they're like, all right, let's do it. And the one site was doing about 400 grand a month. And within 6 months, we had them at 2.7 million. And we could have got it there quite a bit faster. They were having trouble. It was print on demand. So they were having trouble keeping up with the orders. But it took about 6 months to build out a supply chain that could handle that volume consistently. And so I'm like, okay, cool, that worked. And then I had another friend who owned Organifi, which is a green juice supplement and a couple other health food related stuff. And he had done 2.75 million the year before I helped. And I started helping him in April, and within 90 days, we had him at a $9.1 million run rate. He ended up doing 16 million that year. So I was like, okay, data and analytics is where it's at. I'm gonna figure that out. I'm gonna get really good at it. And I stopped running ads, and all I did was start optimizing people's websites based off of their data and analytics. And that's really, what birthed BGS and what it is today, where we help online entrepreneurs essentially optimize their traffic. I always tell everybody, traffic's not your problem. When your website converts at 2%, that means 100 people raise their hand, said, I'm interested in what you're doing or the product that you have, and only 2 people bought and 98 of them left. And everybody thinks like, oh, I need more traffic. I need more traffic. I'm like, that feels broken. If I can get 2 more of those 98 that already raised their hand and came to your site to convert, I just doubled your business. It's a lot easier to do that than it is to double your traffic and have it remain profitable. But once you're making 4 sales for every 100 people you send, now your traffic can be profitable and you can buy it from multiple sources, and that's really what's birthed, all the success that we've been able to create for the brands that we work with.
That's phenomenal. I think we should go back a little bit, only because I think the Go4CEO community really is about driven by mindset, right? So
Sure.
you picked up on a tip that Anthony Robbins shared. Now, you had heard probably of Anthony Robbins and all the things that he's doing. In fact, just recently he had a pretty big 3-day thing with Dean Graziosi,
Yep.
from what I remember. And people are attracted to those things, right? But from a Go4CEO mindset, right? Like, you already had a business that was traditional. You were kind of grinding that out, and then you saw an opportunity through learning, right, and investing in yourself. Give us a little bit of that journey, because obviously, you pick up a system, and probably millions of other people picked up that same system throughout the years and didn't do what you did. So what were some clues that, if you look back at it, that initiated the way that you took action?
Yeah, 2 things. One, it was non-negotiable. So like I didn't give myself an out. Like I 100% committed to I was going to figure it out and be 100% online in 5 years, where I didn't have to worry about the weather. I didn't have to worry about people paying me for these big, huge contracts, just a whole bunch of stuff. So I did not give myself oh, if this works, or I'm going to try. I basically said I'm gonna figure it out no matter what. So that was first. And then I stuck with that, because the first 3 or 4 things that I did, I literally just spent money and kept trying and kept trying and kept trying. They weren't working um, until that t-shirt thing came along, and that was the first thing that I did. that had some legs, and I ran with it. And so, yeah, I would get up at 2 in the morning. We would go pour concrete for 8, 9 hours, finish it, get back to the hotel room at 3, 4 in the afternoon, and be ready for the next morning to do the next pour. And I would sit there and look for t-shirt designs and throw them up and figure out ads. And like I was tired, but it didn't matter. Like I thought, like we're gonna figure it out, and if I'm gonna do it and it's gonna replace this, I'm gonna have to do both of them for a while.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a mindset out there, right? And if you learn from the Ed Milett's and the big names, right? They always talk
Yeah,
about those things where, 9 to 5, it was creating a lifestyle for you. It had some sort of value, right? You
yeah,
built it, and it could have been a job or your business, like you had. But 5 to 9 or later, you had to put in that extra work for a short period of time, and I think that's where people miss this, hustle mentality or side gig type thing, is that they're not looking at it as a replacement. They're looking at it purely from a, I just make an extra money. You were looking at it as like, this is my exit plan,
yeah.
which is nice. So sweet,
Yeah, and I
sweet. Well,
think
yeah,
I think the other thing that catches a lot of people up is uh you're tired and you don't feel like doing it every day. Again, that doesn't matter. You have to just say, like, okay, what's the end goal? What do I have to do every day to get to that end goal? And then that has to become what you're committed to. And so for me, um, yeah, I knew like I lost money. I actually even hired a guy to like do a bunch of the little things that I couldn't do so he could be testing while I was making the money in the concrete to pay him to do that, for me to learn and iterate quicker.
yeah,
Uh, just it is the way that it is. And the other thing, I love Ed Milet. He's one of my favorite people to follow. There's seasons to businesses. And so there is seasons where you're going to work daylight till dark or from 2 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. And that happens. And those are the people, everybody's, oh, wow, must be nice. Well, you know, overnight success is built in 10 years in the quiet.
Mhm. No, yeah. I mean, look, the 90-day madman, that mindset that he has is putting in that 90 days, right? And putting it. I even love. I shared back in a few videos ago where he talks about that whole 6 in the morning till 12, and then
Yeah.
12 to 6 and six
Six
to
and six.
12,
Yeah.
right? So creating 3 days out of one. Now, that's not always sustainable for a year or what have you, but like you said, short periods of time can really accelerate. I remember Kobe Bryant talking about he would be in 2 hours before any of his teammates.
Yeah.
That two
Yeah.
hours every day and maybe an hour afterwards created hundreds of hours of more practice time for him. So it's really, really great stuff. So let's get back to BGS, right? I mean, so you build the t-shirt business. You had to pivot. You created a little bit of a momentum there, but then all of a sudden some things got taken under your legs, right? Kind of like the
Yep.
concrete business. You're starting to get a little bit like frustrated. Then you find this other tool, Shopify. But I hear the mindset is, hey, I'm going to get good at this again. And I'm not failing, and I'm going to get going again. So tell us a little bit about how that created that movement with your friends, the peer group that you had, and then now obviously BGS is consistently helping other entrepreneurs grow their business.
Yeah, I've never had the mindset of this is mine and there's not enough work to go around. So on those big concrete jobs, there could be two or three other concrete contractors. Because a lot of times you have a Lowe's going up, you have a Walmart going up, you have a Menards going up. They're all going up at the same time. Different companies are doing different things. And because of the type of work we did, which was large flat work and then paving pours with concrete, we had some very specialized equipment. And we would travel around obviously to do that. Well, if that equipment breaks down, you typically have 6, 8 trucks lined up that are just dumping concrete. Well, that's, tens of thousands of dollars. So I got good at right away when another contractor that did similar work to us, I would go introduce myself, say, hey, listen, here's the equipment that we have. If you have a breakdown, here's my cell phone, give me a buzz. Like, I don't want to see you lose money. And they would do the same for me. And we ended up building this little network of a bunch of people that, it was a small group back then, 20 years ago, that could do that kind of work. But I never had this mentality of like, oh, they can't use my stuff because that's going to hurt me. And so when I started doing well in the t-shirts, I reached out to 4 or 5 friends and we said, "Hey, we're going to create this little group. We're making a bunch of money." There was me and one other guy that were self-employed. The other 4 people all had jobs, and within 90 days, all of them had quit their job because they had made more in 90 days than they did for the last year, and they were selling T-shirts. And so we were sharing what would work for us, and we had 5 people that were literally, around the clock figuring stuff out. And so we just grew it really fast and did really well by sharing instead of trying to hoard this. I have to protect what I'm doing. And so I've done that same thing even in, with BGS. We share so much stuff for free. We give our very best tips. How do you make your website work better? Because not every, lots of people can go do it and they'll make more money, but not everybody wants to do it long term. We've been doing it for 10 or 12 years. So when they get to that point, who are they going to go? Whoever's giving them the information to grow, why not go partner with them? And that's literally how we've built our business.
So that brings up a point of, when you're sharing that information, not everybody acts on it, right? So a lot of the fear is like, hey, I'm going to lose market share because everybody's going to act on everything that I'm giving away, and it's
Yeah.
just not true, right?
Yeah.
So there's a certain percentage of people that just are lazy. They're not.
Yeah.
They
About
they
one to
grant
5% will actually do something.
1,000%. And well, it's like that's why I laugh a little bit. NDAs are nice, but it's like it's not that big of a deal. Don't be
Right.
so stressed about it. All that types because that person may hear your idea 10 times and never do anything anyway. So, but long story short, so now you're with BGS, right? You found that company and you kind of transitioned right from selling the actual products to being more of the kind of the facilitator and the grower of business, right? The consultant per se. But it sounds like too you're actually getting an opportunity. Are you then merging with some of these and taking over? Are you acquiring them as you build them up? Because maybe they don't want to be in the business after 5 years. What's some of the dynamic of that?
Yeah, a little bit of both. The majority of, we don't really want to run the business. We want to specialize in what we do best. And so we've been very good at saying no to all the other things that we're not great at. And every time we said no to the other things, we've got better at what we do. And it's basically that uh, mindset of do you want to be a pediatrician, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, or do you want to be a brain surgeon? And for us, we just chose like we're going to do the brain surgery and let everybody else do everything else. We don't run ads, we don't do SEO, we don't, but we know that when someone lands on your website till they give you money, how to optimize that process so that you get 4 or 5 or 6 out of 100 people that visit your site instead of 2.
Awesome, awesome. And it could be in all types of products, right?
Yeah,
Is that the
100%.
journey?
It's
Okay.
product agnostic.
Okay.
Because really what we're doing is we're looking at the how people interact with the website. So we're using the data. It's not product specific. And but there's patterns. Like we know that if the average order value of the product is $2,000, you're not going to get a 4% conversion. You might be, 1%, sub 1%. But if you have a $50 average order value, you could be at 6 or 8% conversion. So like there's patterns as far as that, but how people interact with the website is all data and principle based. So it doesn't really, we're product agnostic.
I love it. I love it. Well, look, I always like to talk about some of the scaling part of it, right? And the interaction with growing a team. I know obviously online and some of these types of businesses can be, self-driven, right? If you do the cash flow quadrants, so you go from an employee of trading hours for dollars to self-employed, you kind of own your own job, to business owner, you start to have a team, and then an investor, the 4 quadrants. But you had been already self-employed, right? And kind of building the business part of it, and then had some joint partnerships that you built this group out of, just out of sheer openness, right? And building your connections and having business for them and you come back and forth. Now you get into e-commerce. what were some of the things that you did to alleviate, either was it through independent contractors, or did you bring on W-2 employees? How did you scale your organization itself?
Yeah, so we've grown it up to 70 people, and that was a little more than what I wanted. So now we're back down in 30 some,
Okay.
and that we're all remote. And I really like that. I've actually traveled all over the world and visited a lot of our team. And so I wanted it to be flexible. And I think a lot of that was born out of I was forced to be on the road, and my living was based on the weather and schedules and all these other things. And I thought, if I'm going to actually do this the way that I want to and construct the life that I'm going to be happy with, I want to be able to work from anywhere, and I want to be able to go visit places and not have to stop. And so I literally built it around that. And thankfully we have a team that I would put up against anyone, for optimizing sites, because that's all we've done now for 10, 11 years. And yeah, I really love what I do. I get up excited to go to work every day.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, I know you're making a huge impact. I mean, I know, in the mid to late 90s, we were all hearing about online and internet. Then there's the internet boom and bust that happens in the 2000, right? But then, these phones that we have, this computer, these technologies have created such a robust way, but yet still a small percentage is using it, right? It's kind of like success in general, right? The top 5%, top 1%. It's not easy, right? But you got to put the effort in. So tell us a little bit about kind of just your own marketing, right? You've obviously had to develop relationships. Sounds like you're a very hands-on person, building really true good relationships with people that are in same competitive background, but also building that relationship. So it's maybe there's some joint venture opportunities, some joint collaboration things. What's some of the ways that you've been able to build that side of your marketing and grow your business?
Yeah, I've invested quite a bit in masterminds, and essentially what that is it's a bunch of like-minded business owners talking about getting help on areas that you struggle with or what you're really good at, and then facilitating solid networking with good quality individuals. And that's helped a lot. The majority, we haven't run any Facebook ads now for close to 3 years.
Oh, wow.
um, and before that, we ran them to challenges and did things like that, built a community, and our reputation. But after a while, if you stay in the same thing, you do a good job, and you take care of people, the word of mouth and referral just continues to provide more and more business.
Nice, nice. And do you also, I guess, take from those success stories and put that out there, or is it just more of like an internal thing where you create a community and there's acknowledgement and showcasing them as success stories?
Yeah, we for sure. It's hard to publish, you can't really give people's numbers and what they're doing in their
Sure.
companies. So
Yeah.
we don't do it that way, but we certainly share their successes. I'm in the process right now, um, and I probably will be for the next 10 years, because we've developed such a good relationship with our number one best client ever. Um, I've worked with him now going on 4 years, and he went from having sold $4,000 online when I first met him to this year he'll probably do 60 million. He's 31 years old, so he ended up doing $1 million in sales his first 13 months. Uh, 14.8 million the second, so he 14x'd. Then he did 36.8, and this year he'll do probably 70 before he's done.
Wow. And
Um,
what kind of products are those?
he sells parts to diesel trucks. And so,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
just it's crazy. The markets are so big, people don't realize it. And he doesn't, yeah, he's very coachable. And we were able to stop, him from hitting a lot of pitfalls. And so you can go from peak to peak. That's the best way.
Interesting, interesting. So he go direct from his manufacturers of those parts, or because I have a client, selfishly on my commercial banking hat, that does refurbishing of heavy equipment. So they'll
Oh,
take an
cool.
old Caterpillar or an old
Yeah.
Hyundai or whatever and break it down. But it's very intensive because the warehouse and they have to refabricate things, and
Yeah.
their
Painful.
website brings most of their business. But I was curious if it's direct or those types of things and how you're doing that.
Yeah, he uses affiliates. So there's, influencers that talk about the products that they sell and that drives their traffic.
Oh, that's neat. That's
Yeah.
neat. So awesome stuff. Well, look, I mean, a lot of times, when you're building a business, there's always pitfalls, right? There's things that adjust, and you've decided to stay kind of on course with one different or one scenario or one area and master that. What have been some things that you've picked up on in these peer groups and these masterminds, from business in general? It sounded like you have this one major client that you really have enjoyed doing business with for about 4 years, 5 years. What have been some pitfalls that you've seen that talk about, let's say, client longevity? How long they stay with you, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, I guess this would be, I'm trying to think how to, it's going to be more beneficial for your listeners if I tell them what I did wrong than
Okay.
what I'm doing right. Because I think we learn from, I think we learn more from the struggle than we do from the celebration. And a lot of times, if you're celebrating, people write that off as like, when I tell people how successful my client's been, they think like, oh, well, he must be special. He must be this, he must be that, or that's an anomaly. But we have other clients that are doing that too. He just happens to be the one that did it quicker because he was very coachable. And when we said, do this based off of our 10 years of experience, it's going to yield better results. And he just does it. He doesn't fight or try to do it his own way or all this thing. I don't think I was that coachable. I think my downfall until the last couple years was I always told everybody I have a really good work ethic and I'm smart. But when I looked at my results, there's other people that are doing 10 times, 100 times better than me. So what if I just said, what if I'm not smart? Then all of a sudden, instead of me knowing everything, I was open to a lot better advice. And what we've created over the last 3, 4 years from that mindset shift has been exponentially better than what we created the 3 years before that. And so I would say, get a good mentor, um, pay to shortcut the line, and you'll be a lot happier doing it than having to run into the brick wall 20 times before you figure out where the door opening is.
That's huge. That's huge. And selfishly, I'll plug my book, chapter 3. We talk about accountability, right? And there's always that time that you look in the mirror, but that mentor-mentee relationship, a lot of people just don't take advantage of it or don't know how to look for it. Who can be open to that? And a lot of successful people, including like yourself, right? You're open to sharing ideas and thoughts and mentoring someone. I think it's internally in us that no, I want to do it myself, or I can do this, and you have that pride, right, which is a killer of most businesses and people, unfortunately, towards success. So really interesting stuff. So what areas are things that you would, I guess, put into the funding world, right? I'm a commercial banker by day to day. And I'm always talking to businesses about capital and access to capital and understanding the difference between bootstrapping, cash flow management, understanding where the next dollar is and how to separate that to, reinvestment and those types of things. I'm sure obviously there's some capital intensive areas of the business, literally from the beginning parts, right, of marketing and maybe inventory that you talked about in some of
Yeah.
the products that you had. But what are some of the capital things that you've learned? And did you take out SBA loans? Did you bootstrap most of it? Did you have investors?
Yeah, definitely did SBA loans. That was our strategy. And yeah, that honestly is one of the major factors of building, growing, and scaling. Even a profitable business, when they're growing fast, requires cash. Everybody thinks like, oh, I'll just reinvest what I'm earning. But if you're actually growing and scaling at a high level, a lot of times the profit isn't enough. And so you do borrow money. And understanding the leverage of money has made a huge difference in the companies that we help, whether they can scale that multiple millions per month or whether they, it takes them 6 months to get to a couple hundred grand and then another 6 months to get to 400 and so on. That has a lot to do with the mindset and the risk aversion that the owner has. So there's different things that go into it. When we have a conversation about partnering with someone, we really want to know like those and what is their risk strategy, what is their appetite for uh, funding heavy growth, because our we can only work with so many people, and so we have to vet or filter out the people that aren't a good fit. And we learned that the hard way over the years too. Someone that's making 10 grand a month and you grow them to the point where they're making 100 grand a month and then they're not excited to grow anymore. And everybody's success is different to them. So you can't fault them. Like they built the business to live a lifestyle that they consider successful, not what we consider successful. And so at that point, it really will save you a lot of years and working with the wrong clients, or not necessarily the wrong ones, but the product fit will be a lot better if you're willing to have hard conversations up front.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, those are evaluation opportunities, right? And making sure that you know what that avatar looks like, what
Yeah.
type of the resources that they need. So let's go a little bit deeper on that. I love this conversation being in the banking world. You know, so is the process of the evaluation of that client, take us through that journey. What does that client journey look like when they initially, engage with BGS?
Yeah, they come and say, hey, this is what we're doing. Most of them, uh, they have a business that's working. It's just never been optimized. And so that 100, $200,000 a month range is like our ideal client, because we can take them from, hey, we have traffic, they've figured that out, we understand supply chain, we just don't know how to get 4 or 5 sales out of 100 instead of two. And it's this constant roller coaster. So when we fix that UX UI of the website and it creates more consistent sales, that gives them the ability to now um, offset that stress that they were having from not figuring it out, to now I have the bandwidth to do the banking, or I have the bandwidth to build the team, or I have the bandwidth to have phenomenal customer support because I'm not running my ads, I'm not doing all these other things. We've been doing this now for 10, 12 years, so we also have, a lot of network into very good quality vendors that they need in order to grow their business. And that's the other thing that I would say, um, to really create a successful business, you can't be a category of one. You really need to have a network of people that have went through problems, understand how to solve problems, or have like plan Bs or Cs and figure that out. Because in all reality, business is like the ultimate inner game. Like it's going to challenge you every single way, just like a relationship will show you where you're not good enough, or where you need to improve, or where you need to adjust and grow. And that's what business is. And so having people that you can talk out loud to and have them ask you questions is, I think it's fundamental to having a successful business now.
Yeah, it creates that which I love to talk about, momentum, right? So,
Yeah.
building with the right people, having the right team. In my world, I always talk about, hey, a good attorney, a good accountant, and a great banker. at the table with your small to medium-sized business is a key factor, right? Obviously, you play in another space of being able to optimize their website and having BGS be that consultant, arm of their business and multiplier for their traffic and revenue side. So it's really, really awesome. So, what are other things that you're doing over the next 6 to 18 months? Obviously, we're all kind of in this AI intricate, intriguing world. I know for myself, we're trying to figure out, how do I build an agent? Because we all like that. I mean, hey, virtual assistance was big for the last 20 years and, offloading some things off of people. Now, maybe it's not offshore. Now it's inshore and you're building this agent. What are some ideas and things that BGS is bringing to the marketplace over the next 6 to 18 months?
Yeah, we're using the large language models a lot. They give us a lot more capability. So we're not trying to replace people. We're trying to, the way I think of it is create like super employees. So they can use these tools to double, triple their output, and they actually work less and it's less stressful. Then it's not driving them for max. You're getting the maximum productivity, but they're doing it at a sustainable level. And the way that we can analyze data on your website now, you know, we've always done it with our own brains. Now we can essentially, the way that I think about it is if you have all this data, like a library worth of data, you have all their Google Analytics, you have all their tag manager information, you have all their sales, all their customer data, their reviews. You have this whole library of information. And the way that we used to have to do it is go, okay, I think, this area is broken. I'm gonna go read the 3 books on that and figure out how I can, optimize that. While with AI, we can feed all that information from their data into a thing and go, hey, our average order value is $100 and we convert at 3%. We want our average order value to be $125 and convert at 4% in the next 90 days. Help me use all of this data in a way that I'm not seeing to get us there and build me a roadmap. And it's unbelievable how much smarter it is and how, the ideas that it's coming up with. So it's made us much better at our job that we just couldn't humanly do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the speed is incredible. I'm testing some things myself with the book and trying to figure out ways to do things right interactively. Building systems and stuff, and system right. Save yourself time, energy, and money.
Yeah.
So it's a great great tool. So awesome stuff. Well, look, we like to end our interviews with CEO, right? So client experience is C. E is for engagement, and that's with your vendors, your employees, the people that you work with, peer groups, all that type of stuff. And then O is for optimization. Um, you know, uh, you know, kind of taking the systems and the tools and the softwares that you're using and the AIs and all that type of stuff. So let's start with client experience. You shared a little bit of the client journey, but if you would say, hey, 60 seconds of you know proposition from a BGS standpoint, what does that look like for a client experience with BGS?
It's funny. I hired a CEO back in October, and he spent the first 3 months interviewing everybody and going through that. And he said the topic or the term that kept coming up over and over and over was world class. And
Mm,
I'm like, that's literally what we've always preached is that we want them to have a world-class experience. So I heard, I think it was Richard Branson said, treat everybody so good and teach them so well that they could go anywhere, but treat them so good they'll never leave.
mm,
And so that's really been my mindset of like, hey, we're gonna give them the best tools. We're gonna teach them everything. They could go work for a lot of other places, but they just don't want to leave. And we have it's proven out. We have our shortest tenured people are like 6, 7 years, 8 years, and I love it. Like it's a family, and so I think that when you have that type of a culture, you're gonna take good care of your clients, and your clients become friends.
Well, I love it. You intertwine client experience and engagement there. It's so, essentially like making sure that your team is so appreciative and understand appreciated and understood that they then give that experience to your clients, right? Coming
Yeah.
through the client journey side of things. Awesome stuff. Any other clues of engagement? Are you, you said you have a team that's worldwide, it's online. Are you doing things that are webinar based? Are you getting together at a random Mykonos in Greece? Like what is anything engaging that you do that is kind of set you apart as the leader?
Yeah, so I like I said, I've traveled all around the world to meet with them and do different things. I've been to India now 6 times because we have about nine to and actually yeah, 12. There's 12 of them over there, and so a third of our team is there. And so when I go over, they all come to the same spot and we meet, and we've done a whole ton of things. We definitely do a company meeting every month. We also have, I would say, it's every 2 weeks. We've implemented the EOS system. So we're like reviewing like the rocks that we're working on every 30 days and moving that. So yeah, I think one thing that I wasn't great at and the new CEO has made a huge difference is putting systems into the business so that everybody's rowing in the same direction. And so, yeah, another damaging admission. The systems really, really matter because it's made a huge difference in my productivity, my happiness, and uh, how much I have to show up to do the same amount of results is astronomically less. So systems are great.
Yeah, it makes a world of a difference, right? When you can optimize things and create those opportunities for other people, right? To
Yeah.
also engage into that and be a part of it. So awesome stuff. And the last one is operational excellence, right? Operations, can be what destroys all your sales because the limelight is sales and creating all this money and this revenue. It's great, but if you don't have a back end that's strong, it could really crush your business pretty quickly. So what are some, two or three highlights of softwares or systems that you've been able to put in? You talked about the CEO. Is he brought in some new ideas of back end infrastructure? What are those types of things going on in BGS?
Yeah, so we've always had the tools and in order to give the world-class experience, but the systems that he's installed has created, the SOPs that matter.
Mm.
Uh, so that every client gets the same experience instead of one gets a super great experience and the other one, you know, falls through the cracks. So I would say, as far as the operational excellence, it really does require that everybody has a managed expectation. You can't just assume that they know what their job is because uh, as a business owner, that's totally different than what the person fulfilling the work is doing. And having those regular conversations with them to know what they're doing and actually getting feedback from them because they have a lot of times better ideas how to have a better service because they're in there doing it every day where
Mhm.
I'm selling it, but the fulfillment is actually the most important part, not the selling of it. Because if I sell a whole bunch and then we don't fulfill it, we've ruined our reputation and nobody's gonna do business with us down the road. But if we have a great experience, even people that leave are still recommending us because they've built an in-house team over the years that we've worked with them. And they still are like, yeah, this is who taught us. Go see them. And that's really what's happened for us over the last several years. And that's why we don't run ads anymore.
I love it. Well, you made me think when you said assume. I always try to teach my kids this is a valuable word, kids, because assume is make an ass out of you and me if I don't
Yeah.
do it the right way. So,
Yeah. I knew you were
so,
going there. I've used that
so,
statement.
but Awesome stuff. Well, Matthew, thank you so much for being on the Go4CEO channel. We really appreciate your wisdom and all the things you're doing to help online businesses, and really going from we stole you from the concrete business and world to bring you over to the online world, and you've done some great things. So, any last words? Any ways that you feel like people can reach out to you? What's the best way to get a hold of BGS? Obviously, we'll put some stuff in the comment or in the description area. But anything? Last words?
Yeah, I love helping people make their website work better. And so my email is matt@buildgrowscale.com. You can get on my calendar and I'll jump on and do an audit with you, or you can just go to buildgrowscale.com. We have all kinds of free resources. You can see how we could help you optimize your website.
Awesome, guys. Well, hey, by the way, subscribe to the channel if you've made it through this whole video. This has been incredible stuff, and I love interviewing small to medium-sized business owners, doing hundreds of thousands to hundreds of millions. It's a big deal to be able to move society and do things that are building revenue. And obviously, Matthew's making a big difference in other people's lives, creating other revenue sources and maximizing things within their websites and businesses. So thank you so much. The 4A formula is coming out in the end of July. Looking forward to sharing that book with everybody. And thank you, Matthew. We'll have you back on in the next 18 to 24 months. We'd love to share, obviously, some of the new growth things in BGS and what's happened with this new CEO and AI things that are going on. So thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.